My father declared war on my company, so I fake engaged his greatest enemy, a hacker who hates everything I stand for. We promised mutual destruction, not feelings. But when Victor exposed our lie, we turned his digital fortress against him. The sterile gleam of the Carter Innovations Auditorium reflected Lena Carter's own meticulously crafted facade. Spotlights converged on the stage where she stood, a vision of controlled power in an immaculate white pantsuit, her dark hair a sharp, precise frame for features honed by boardroom battles. Below her, a sea of investors, tech journalists, and industry titans awaited the unveiling of Aegis, the AI security platform poised to redefine corporate digital defense. Lena's voice, crisp and authoritative, cut through the anticipatory hum. Aegis doesn't just react, it anticipates. It learns the unique fingerprint of your enterprise, identifying anomalies before they become breaches. It's not just a shield, it's a sentinel. Her hand gestured towards the sleek, minimalist display unit beside her, projecting swirling, abstract patterns representing secure data flow. Confidence radiated from her, the image of the visionary CEO steering her company into an unassailable future. Beneath the podium, shielded from the audience's view, Lena's knuckles were white where she gripped the edge. Her gaze flickered, almost imperceptibly, towards the discrete holoscreen embedded in the lectern. News alerts scrolled in a relentless, silent ticker. The words burned. Carter Global Enterprises acquires 18% stake in Carter Innovations. Victor Carter confirms hostile takeover bid for daughter's company. Analysts. CG seeks control of Aegis IP. CI board split. Panic was a luxury Lena Carter could not afford. It was a corrosive acid her father, Victor, would exploit without hesitation. He'd timed this perfectly, a surgical strike during her moment of triumph, designed to shatter confidence and showcase her perceived vulnerability. He wants Aegis. He wants to prove I'm still just his disappointing daughter. The familiar, icy knot of inadequacy tightened in her chest, instantly smothered by a surge of pure, focused fury. She forced a fraction more brilliance into her smile, her voice unwavering as she continued the Aegis demo. The performance must be flawless. Inside, the battle had already begun. Later, in the controlled chaos of her penthouse office, all glass, titanium, and breathtaking city views, Lena dissected the damage. Her COO, Marcus, paced, his usual calm replaced by agitation. He's moving fast, Lena, leveraging old contacts on the board. The narrative is already spinning. Victor Carter stepping in to steady the ship his inexperienced daughter can't captain, experienced enough to build Aegis from scratch while he was busy conglomerating outdated tech. Lena snapped, scrolling through financial projections, her mind a whirlwind of counter-strategies. Buybacks? Poison pills? Finding a white knight? Victor would anticipate them all. He'd taught her the playbook, then rewritten it with his own ruthless amendments. Her head of security, Vera Rostova, entered, her expression grim. We have a lead on the Cypher Collective takedown, confirmed it was CGE Black Ops, sophisticated false flag, planted breadcrumbs leading back to Rhodes, made it look like he orchestrated a minor breach at a CGE subsidiary. Just enough evidence for authorities to dismantle them. Clean sweep. Lena's fingers stilled on the holoscreen. Zayden Rhodes. The brilliant, infuriating thorn in the side of every major corporation, her father's included. Cypher Collective specialized in exposing corruption, security flaws, and unethical data harvesting. They were activists, idealists, anarchists in expensive suits, depending on who you asked. Victor had crushed them like insects. A message, Lena realized, cold clarity washing over her. Crush dissent, show dominance, and a warning shot across my bow. An idea, audacious and dangerous, began to crystallize. Victor had made Zayden his public enemy #1. He was brilliant, unpredictable, and, crucially, shared her father as a common enemy. More importantly, the public knew he despised Victor Carter. He was the antithesis of everything CGE stood for. He's Victor's nightmare made manifest, Lena murmured, a predatory gleam replacing the fury in her eyes. And potentially our shield. Marcus frowned. Rhodes? He'd rather hack his own brain than help a corporation, especially one run by a Carter. Exactly, Lena said, a plan forming with terrifying speed. He hates Victor more, and Victor just destroyed his life's work, scattered his found family. That's a powerful motivator. Find him, Vera. I need to talk to Zayden Rhodes, now. The contrast to Lena's world was jarring. The circuit, a repurposed warehouse in a neglected part of the city, hummed with a different kind of energy. Neon graffiti pulsed on exposed brick walls. The air smelled of solder, stale energy drinks, and unwashed ambition. Banks of mismatched monitors glowed, manned by figures hunched in hoodies, their faces illuminated by flickering code. This was the digital frontier's underbelly, a world Lena navigated through proxies and firewalls, rarely in person. Zayden Rhodes was easy to spot, not because he commanded attention, but because the others subtly orbited him. He sat slouched in a battered gaming chair, fingers flying across a keyboard, his dark, unruly hair falling into intense eyes, fixed on lines of scrolling code. He wore worn jeans and a faded t-shirt sporting a cryptic circuit diagram. Defiance wasn't just his attitude, it was woven into his very posture. Lena, flanked by Vera, felt like an alien artifact dropped into a chaotic ecosystem. Murmurs rippled through the space as they approached. Zayden didn't look up until Lena was practically looming over his workstation. "Rhodes," she stated, her voice cutting through the ambient electronic buzz. His fingers paused. Slowly, he swiveled his chair, his gaze sweeping over her designer suit with undisguised contempt before locking onto her face. Recognition flared, followed by pure, incandescent rage. "Carter." The word was a curse. He stood up, taller than she expected, radiating kinetic anger. "Come to gloat? Or just checking the wreckage your daddy dearest left behind?" He gestured violently around the space. "See the remnants of the collective? Courtesy of Carter Global Enterprises, your family brand." The accusation hung heavy. Lena met his fury head-on, her own expression glacial. "I didn't order that, Rhodes. I didn't even know about it until after the fact." "Right," he scoffed, stepping closer. Lena could smell the coffee on his breath, see the fatigue etched around his eyes. "Because you're so different? Sitting in your glass tower, playing queen of the tech world while your company probably uses worse practices than the ones we exposed? You're cut from the same toxic cloth, just prettier packaging." Vera shifted subtly, a warning. Lena held up a hand. "Save the anti-corporate manifesto. I didn't come here for a debate on capitalist ethics." She took a deliberate step forward, closing the distance, forcing him to look down at her. "My father destroyed your life. He's actively trying to destroy mine. Right now." A hostile takeover bid launched today. A flicker of surprise crossed Zayden's face, quickly masked by suspicion. "Touching family drama. What's that got to do with me? You think I care if one soulless megacorp eats another?" "Because," Lena said, her voice dropping low, intense, cutting through his sarcasm, "he sees you as a threat. He crushed the collective to send a message, to me as much as to you. He fears unpredictability. He fears dissent that can't be bought. He fears you." Zayden's jaw tightened, but he didn't interrupt. Lena pressed her advantage. "He wants Carter Innovations. He wants Aegis. He wants to prove I'm incapable, that I need him, just like he's always believed." The raw edge of that old wound bled into her voice for a split second before she clamped down. "Help me break him, Zayden. Help me shatter his smug certainty. And in return, I'll help you rebuild. Publicly, legitimately. With Carter Innovations backing, your nonprofit, your collective, reborn stronger. No shadows." Skepticism warred with the burning need for vengeance in Zayden's eyes. "Help you how? You think I'm going to code you a magic bullet? Hack his bank accounts? Please." He's got layers of security thicker than his ego. "It's not about hacking, it's about optics, perception." Lena took a breath, the audacity of her next words hitting her even as she spoke them. "To project unshakable stability, to make Victor's aggression look like petty jealousy, to show the world that even Carter Innovations' most vocal critic stands with me." She paused, locking eyes with him, ensuring he felt the full weight of the proposition. "As my fiancé." The word echoed in the sudden, stunned silence of the hackerspace. The ambient noise seemed to vanish. Zayden stared at her as if she'd sprouted a second head. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. You are insane." Disgust and incredulity warred on his face. "Fiancé? Are you out of your gilded mind? Look at me." He gestured at his clothes, the chaotic space. "Look at you. It's laughable. And the idea, pretending, to you." He shook his head, a harsh, bitter laugh escaping him. "The opulence, the lies, the whole disgusting corporate circus. I'd rather swim in a vat of malware." Lena didn't flinch. She saw the revulsion, but she also saw the image flickering behind his anger. His scattered friends, their work in ruins, their sanctuary gone. Victor's face, smug and victorious. "I know what you think of my world, Rhodes. I think yours is chaotic and self-righteous. We despise each other's realities. But we despise Victor Carter more." She leaned in, her voice a razor whisper. "This is the weapon he won't see coming, a public spectacle he can't ignore, a united front that makes him look like the bitter, vengeful old man he island. It's the perfect shield, and it gives you everything you need to rebuild your way, in the light, funded and legitimized. All you have to do, island, perform." Zayden turned away, running a hand through his messy hair. He stared at a flickering monitor showing a fragmented logo of the Cypher Collective. Lena could almost hear the gears grinding in his brilliant, idealistic mind. The cost versus the prize, his principles versus the annihilation of everything he'd built, his hatred for the system versus his deeper, more personal hatred for the man who had shattered it. He turned back, his eyes dark pools of conflicted fury. Perform, like a trained seal at your corporate galas? Smile for the cameras? Hold your hand? He spat the words. Yes, Lena said flatly. Attend events, stand by my side, look, besotted or at least committed, in public. The narrative is stability, unity, defiance against Victor's aggression. Behind closed doors we strategize, we bring him down, we get you your foundation. Then we stage a mutually agreeable, amicable split. The world moves on, silence stretched. The hum of servers filled the void. Zayden looked past her, at the faces of the few remaining collective members watching the confrontation with wary hope. He saw Kai, their best cryptographer, looking lost. He saw Maya, their whistleblower liaison, her usual fire dampened. Victor hadn't just destroyed servers, he'd scattered a family. He closed his eyes for a moment, then snapped them open, fixing Lena with a gaze that promised this would be excruciating for both of them. Fine. The word was ripped from him. But my terms. 1. Absolute autonomy over the rebuild. The Cypher Foundation sets its own mission, ethics, governance. Carter Innovations is a silent partner, a funding source, nothing more. No oversight, no interference. You don't get to co-opt it. Agreed, Lena said immediately. 2. My people, Kai, Maya, the core team. They get priority positions, funded. No corporate vetting beyond basic security. They answer to me, not your HR drones. Done. 3. No pretending in private. We are not friends. We are allies of convenience against a common enemy. The second Victor is neutralized. This farce ends. We go our separate ways. Clean break. Lena nodded, a sharp jerk of her chin. Understood. The charade is purely public armor, nothing more. 4. Zayden added, a dangerous glint in his eye. I will not sanitize myself for your boardroom wolves. I speak my mind. If they ask about ethics, data privacy, corporate overreach, I answer honestly. If that causes you problems, that's your problem. This isn't me joining your cult. A muscle twitched in Lena's jaw. Within reason, Rhodes, we need to project unity, not internal warfare, but, point taken, controlled dissent can be part of the narrative. Just keep it from tanking the stock price, she silently added. He studied her, the polished CEO bargaining with the chaos he represented. Finally, he held out a hand, not to shake, but as a stark gesture of sealing a toxic pact. Then we have a deal, partner. May we both live to regret it. Lena looked at his hand, calloused and bearing a faint smudge of solder, then placed her own perfectly manicured one against it for the briefest, coldest contact. Mutual loathing for mutual gain, she stated. The pact was sealed, not in trust but in shared burning animosity for Victor Carter. The engagement announcement was a detonation in the media landscape. Lena Carter, the Ice Queen of Silicon Valley, engaged to Zayden Rhodes, the infamous Robin Hood hacker? It was too bizarre, too perfect, too deliciously scandalous to ignore. Press releases crafted by Lena's impeccable PR team painted a picture of opposites attracting, of shared brilliance bridging ideological divides, of love blossoming amidst shared adversity, obliquely referencing Victor's attacks. Photographers swarmed them the moment they stepped outside Lena's building for a carefully orchestrated casual lunch, Zayden looking profoundly uncomfortable in new, slightly too formal clothes Lena's stylist had practically forced on him. Lena's smile brilliant but brittle as she subtly steered him past the flashing lights. Victor Carter's reaction, captured by a paparazzo outside CGE headquarters, was a masterclass in suppressed fury. The charming smile was there, but it didn't reach his cold, calculating eyes. He offered clipped congratulations, his voice smooth as silk yet laced with venom. Lena always had unconventional tastes, and Zayden? Well, he's certainly passionate. I just hope stability is part of his skill set. Carter Innovations needs steady hands at the helm, especially now. The implication, that Lena was reckless, that Zayden was unstable, was crystal clear. Inside the sleek town car whisking them away from the frenzy, the brittle facade crumbled. Lena slumped back against the leather, massaging her temples. He took the bait. Zayden ripped at the stiff collar of his shirt, scowling out the tinted window at the receding chaos. He practically salivated at the chance to paint me as your crazy anarchist boyfriend. Passionate? He meant unhinged. He sees it as weakness, Lena said, a spark of grim satisfaction cutting through her exhaustion. He sees you as my weakness, a vulnerability he can exploit. That's his mistake. Zayden turned his scowl on her. This is insane. I feel like I've been dipped in gold plating. How do people live like this? The staring, the constant performance? You get used to it, Lena replied flatly, already pulling up reports on her holopad. Or you learn to hide in plain sight. Get comfortable, Rhodes, the game has begun. And the next move is a charity gala at the Vanderline Museum tomorrow night. Black tie. Try not to insult any billionaires, at least not to their faces, Zayden groaned, sinking lower in the seat. Just shoot me now. Lena didn't look up from her screen. Later, first we have a monster to slay. As the car glided through the gleaming city, two enemies, bound by a lie and a shared hatred, braced themselves for the gilded battlefield ahead. The engagement ring on Lena's finger, a stunning, cold diamond chosen for its impact, not its sentiment, felt like a shackle. For Zayden, the starched shirt was a straitjacket. The charade was live. And Victor Carter was watching, waiting for the first crack to appear in their silicon veil. The Vanderline Museum, transformed for the Future Horizons charity gala, was a cathedral to wealth and influence. Marble floors gleamed under crystal chandeliers, the air hummed with expensive perfume, murmured deals, and the clink of champagne flutes against priceless art. Lena Carter moved through the throng like a sleek warship cutting through calm waters. Her emerald green gown was armor, her smile a precisely calibrated weapon. On her arm, Zayden Rhodes looked like a hostage forced to admire his own execution. His rented tuxedo felt like a betrayal of his very being. The starched collar choked him, the patent leather shoes pinched. He kept his free hand jammed in his pocket, fingers nervously tracing the edge of his encrypted burner phone, a lifeline to the real world. Smile, Rhodes, Lena murmured through gritted teeth, her own radiant as she acknowledged a passing venture capitalist. Or at least try not to look like you're contemplating arson. These people could fund a small country's healthcare system with the price tag on that ice sculpture, Zayden hissed back, gesturing subtly towards a towering, melting abstraction. And they call me radical? This is obscene. It's philanthropy, Lena countered smoothly, steering him towards a group of board members. Networking, maintaining the illusion. Remember the terms? You don't have to like it, you just have to endure it, and try not to cause an international incident before dessert. Their arrival at the board members was met with polite, if strained, smiles. Charles Henderson, a silver-haired dinosaur with significant holdings, eyed Zayden like a suspicious stain. Mr. Rhodes, quite the surprise announcement. Lena always did have a penchant for the unconventional. His tone dripped with condescension. Zayden met his gaze squarely. Conventional thinking got us climate collapse and data monopolies, Mr. Henderson. Sometimes disruption is necessary. He ignored Lena's subtle pressure on his arm. Henderson chuckled, a dry, rustling sound. Disruption is often just chaos dressed in ambition, young man. Stability, proven models, that's what builds empires, and protects investments. He glanced pointedly at Lena. Recent events require steadiness. Before Lena could deploy her damage control, Victor Carter materialized beside them, a glass of amber liquid in hand. His smile was wide, charming, utterly predatory. Charles, Lena, Zayden, the happy couple. He clapped Zayden on the shoulder with just a fraction too much force. Enjoying the rarefied air? Quite a change from circuit boards and energy drinks, I imagine. Zayden stiffened, forcing himself not to shrug off the touch. The air's a bit thick with self-congratulation, but the champagne's decent. Victor's laugh was a rich, practiced sound. Direct as ever, Zayden. Refreshing in a way. Though, in this room, a little polish goes a long way. He turned his attention to Lena, his gaze sharpening. Impressive turnout, darling. Though one wonders if the focus is on the charity, or the spectacle. He let his eyes drift meaningfully towards Zayden. The cause is paramount, father, Lena replied, her voice cool, her spine rigid. Transparent, ethical tech development for underserved communities, something Carter Innovations is deeply committed to. Unlike CGE, her unspoken words hung in the air. Ah, ethics, Victor mused, swirling his drink. A noble, if somewhat nebulous concept, especially when dealing with unpredictable elements. He looked directly at Zayden. Tell me, how is the rebuilding going, after that unfortunate business with the collective? Such a shame, talented group, if misguided. One hopes your new venture, he paused, letting the word hang with insinuation, learns from their mistakes. Stability is key, Zayden, for everyone's sake. The threat, wrapped in paternal concern, was unmistakable. Zayden felt his fists clench. Lena's hand tightened on his arm, a silent command. Don't rise to it. He took a slow breath. Learning is ongoing, Mr. Carter, especially about recognizing true threats disguised as concerned parties. He offered a tight, humorless smile. But the Foundation appreciates the concern. Victor's eyes glittered with cold amusement. Always happy to offer guidance, especially to family. He raised his glass. To the happy couple, may your union be enduring. He drifted away, leaving a trail of icy tension. The rest of the evening was a gauntlet. Zayden endured inane conversations about market fluctuations he despised, smiled tightly through thinly veiled insults about his background, and watched Lena navigate the shark tank with chilling efficiency. He saw the cracks beneath her armor, the slight tightening around her eyes when Victor's name was mentioned, the fractional hesitation before delivering a perfectly polished rebuttal. She was playing a high-stakes game, and the pressure was immense. Later, escaping to a deserted balcony overlooking the glittering cityscape, Zayden loosened his tie with a groan. Lena joined him, leaning against the railing, the facade momentarily dropping to reveal bone-deep weariness. "Remind me again why this is better than a vat of malware," Zayden asked, staring out at the lights. "Because," Lena sighed, closing her eyes for a brief moment. "In that vat, Victor wins. Here, we fight him on a battlefield he thinks he controls. Henderson and his ilk? They're scared. Victor whispering about my unstable choice? It plants seeds. We need to water different ones. By letting them treat me like a performing monkey?" Zayden shot back. "By showing them you're not," Lena said, turning to him, her gaze intense even in the dim light. "By being brilliant, by being inconveniently principled within reason, by making them see that my unconventional choice brings strength, not weakness, that Victor is the real destabilizing force." Zayden studied her profile, the city lights reflecting in her guarded eyes. "Do you ever get tired of the performance, the constant calculation?" A flicker of something raw crossed Lena's face, gone so fast Zayden almost thought he imagined it. "Tiredness is a luxury Victor never afforded me," she said flatly. "It's the price of the tower." She pushed off the railing. "Come on, time for another round. Try not to dismantle the global financial system before the main course." The friction wasn't confined to galas. Board meetings became battlegrounds. Lena sat at the head of the imposing Carter Innovations table, a portrait of control. Zayden, relegated to an observer's chair near the window, was a live grenade with the pin half pulled. Henderson droned on about quarterly projections, emphasizing the need for prudent cost management and investor confidence during turbulent times. Zayden watched Lena absorb it, her expression unreadable. When Henderson suggested streamlining the ethics compliance team, a department Zayden knew monitored Carter Innovations' own data practices, he couldn't stay silent. Streamlining? Or gutting the only people tasked with making sure Carter Innovations doesn't become the next CGE data vampire? Zayden's voice cut through the corporate drone. All eyes snapped to him. Henderson's face purpled. "Mr. Rhodes, this is a delicate financial discussion. Perhaps matters of operational oversight are best left to those with relevant experience." "My relevant experience," Zayden countered, leaning forward, "is seeing exactly what happens when oversight is deemed an unnecessary cost. Data leaks, privacy violations, trust obliterated. Ask your shareholders how much that costs." He looked directly at Lena. "Ethics aren't a line item on a spreadsheet, they're the foundation, or they should be." Lena held his gaze, a silent battle raging. She saw Henderson's outrage, the nervous glances of other members. She saw Zayden's unwavering conviction, the dangerous spark that could ignite or illuminate. She needed stability, but Zayden was forcing her to confront the cost of the stability Victor represented. "Mr. Rhodes raises a valid perspective," Lena said, her voice cool, measured. "While financial prudence is paramount, Carter Innovations' reputation for integrity, particularly concerning data ethics, is equally vital to our long-term value proposition. The ethics team's role will be reviewed, Charles, but with a focus on efficacy and strengthening our safeguards, not diminishing them. We are not CGE." It was a masterful deflection, acknowledging Zayden's point without fully endorsing his fire, placating Henderson while subtly reinforcing her distance from her father. Zayden saw the calculation, the political maneuvering. He also saw, for a fleeting second, something akin to reluctant respect in her eyes before the shutters came down. She hadn't silenced him. She'd channeled him. Victor's smear campaigns were relentless and insidious. Anonymous sources leaked heavily edited footage of Zayden from his collective days, passionate speeches about corporate accountability twisted to sound like calls for anarchy. Whispers, expertly planted in financial blogs, questioned Lena's judgment, her emotional stability after her father's concerned intervention, suggesting the engagement was a desperate ploy. Photos emerged of Zayden entering the circuit, captioned with insinuations about ongoing radical affiliations. They were constantly dodging, constantly countering. The forced proximity became their strange new normal. Long car rides dissecting Victor's moves, late nights in Lena's penthouse war room, a sleek, minimalist space dominated by holoscreens, fueled by terrible coffee and escalating tension that wasn't always hostile. One such night, after a particularly vicious leak implying Zayden was manipulating Lena for access to Carter Innovations' secrets, the penthouse security system blared an alarm. Lights flashed red. Vera Rostova's voice crackled over the intercom. Perimeter breach attempt. Level 3 intrusion targeting the main server hub. Isolating now. Lena froze, her face pale but composed. Zayden was on his feet instantly, his hacker instincts overriding everything else. "Where's your security hub? Physical location?" "Sub-level 2, Vera responded tersely over the comms. Zayden didn't hesitate. He sprinted from the room, Lena close behind. They descended in a private elevator, the air thick with adrenaline. The security hub was a hive of controlled panic, technicians scrambling, screens flashing with intrusion alerts. "CGE signature," Vera confirmed grimly, pointing to code patterns on a central screen. "They're trying to plant something, or extract, targeting the Aegis core protocols." Zayden pushed past a startled technician, his fingers flying over a secondary terminal. "They're using a modified Hydra protocol, classic CGE Black Ops. They've bypassed your standard firewalls." He began typing furiously, his focus absolute. "Give me admin access, now," he barked at Lena. Lena didn't question him. She input her credentials. Zayden dove into the code, a whirlwind of concentration. Lena watched, mesmerized and unnerved, as he navigated the digital battlefield with an intuition that bordered on the supernatural. He wasn't just defending, he was counterattacking, tracing the intrusion back to its source, deploying digital tripwires. "They think they're ghosts," Zayden muttered, a fierce grin touching his lips. But they left a scent. With a final, decisive keystroke, the alarms ceased. The screen stabilized. Traced. Blocked. And I just fed their own malware back into their primary relay. Should give their sysadmins a nasty headache. Silence descended, broken only by the hum of servers. The technicians stared at Zayden with newfound awe. Vera gave him a curt, professional nod of respect. Lena simply looked at him, the polished CEO facade momentarily gone, replaced by stark relief and something else, genuine surprise. "You patched the vulnerability they exploited," she stated, her voice quiet. Zayden shrugged, the adrenaline fading, replaced by his usual guardedness. "Didn't want them messing with my future funding source." But the deflection was weak. They both knew he'd acted to protect Carter Innovations, to protect her legacy, not just his own interests. Later, back in the relative calm of the living area, the residual tension crackled differently. Lena handed Zayden a glass of water. "Thank you," she said, the words simple but heavy. "That was impressive." Zayden took the glass, avoiding her gaze. "Just returning the favor. Sort of." He paused, then added, "You didn't freeze. Most CEOs would be screaming for someone else to fix it." Lena leaned against the panoramic window, the city lights sprawling below. "Panic is a weapon Victor wields. I learned very young not to give him ammunition." She took a sip of her own water. Sometimes I'm afraid that's all I learned from him. How to be cold, how to calculate, how to win no matter the cost." The admission, whispered into the glass, was the most vulnerable thing she'd ever said to him. "I look in the mirror sometimes and wonder when the ambition started feeling less like a ladder and more like a cage, when I started seeing people as assets, like he does." Zayden watched her, the fierce CEO momentarily stripped bare, haunted by the ghost of the father whose approval she'd never truly won and whose shadow threatened to consume her. He saw the flicker of the idealist who funded Project Greenlight in secret. "We all build cages," he said quietly, surprising himself. "Mine was thinking the only way to fight the system was from outside, screaming from the margins. That purity mattered more than actually getting anything done. That compromise was always surrender." He looked down at his hands, the hands that could crack the world's most secure systems but felt powerless to keep his own family safe. Victor scattering the collective. It proved how fragile that cage was, how easily broken. "Now I'm trying to build something inside the system, funded by you." He gestured vaguely around the opulent room. "And I'm terrified I'll fail them again. That I'll get corrupted. That I'll become part of the machine I hate." It was a shared moment of profound, unexpected vulnerability, laid bare in the aftermath of crisis. The mutual hatred for Victor was still the bedrock, but the ground between them had shifted. They weren't just allies, they were mirrors reflecting each other's deepest fears and hidden compromises. The silence stretched, charged not with animosity, but with a dawning, uncomfortable understanding. The This fragile, nascent understanding was shattered days later by Victor's most brutal strike yet. It wasn't a leak or a whisper. It was a full frontal assault broadcast on every major financial and tech news network. Victor Carter stood at a CGE podium, radiating somber authority. Ladies and gentlemen, the tech world thrives on innovation, but it must be anchored in security and responsibility. Recent events compel me to share troubling information. The screen behind him lit up with satellite images of a nondescript warehouse district. This location, Victor intoned, his voice grave, is not, as publicly claimed, a community tech hub. It is the operational base for a nascent organization calling itself the Cypher Foundation, spearheaded by my daughter's fiancé, Zayden Rhodes. Zayden's blood ran cold. He watched, paralyzed, from Lena's penthouse as Victor continued, displaying manipulated chat logs, fabricated financial trails, distorted snippets of Zayden's past speeches. Evidence, Victor declared, his expression one of pained duty, indicates this foundation is a front, a sophisticated hub for coordinating cyber attacks, harboring digital fugitives, and planning acts of disruptive activism that border on cyber terrorism. They target not just corporations, but critical infrastructure. Mr. Rhodes, leveraging his new proximity to Carter Innovations, poses a significant threat to national security and economic stability. The screen filled with the CGE logo and a stark headline. Carter exposes radical hub linked to daughter's fiancé, calls for action. Lena's phone began ringing incessantly. Board members, investors, lawyers. The market ticker on another screen showed Carter Innovations stock plummeting. Vera burst into the room, her face grim. Feds are mobilizing. They'll raid the foundation site within the hour. Victor's demanding an emergency session of your board. Zayden felt sick. The warehouse was just secured, barely outfitted. Kai, Maya, the others. They were just starting to gather again. Now they'd be branded terrorists. His dream, his promise to them, was being obliterated by Victor's lies. He turned to Lena, raw panic and fury warring in his eyes. He's destroying it. He's destroying everything. They'll arrest them, shut it down. Lena stood rigid, staring at the screens, the cacophony of ringing phones and news reports of physical assault. Her face was marble. Her board would be apoplectic. Investors were fleeing. Denouncing Zayden, cutting ties immediately was the only logical move. It would save Carter Innovations. It would appease the regulators. It would distance her from the toxic fallout. She looked at Zayden. Not the infuriating hacker, the chaotic liability, but the man who'd patched her systems, who'd admitted his fear of failing his people, who represented a flicker of the ethical conscience she'd buried deep. Denouncing him meant handing him, and everything he stood for, to Victor on a silver platter. It meant becoming exactly what she feared, Victor's true heir, valuing survival over integrity. Victor's face filled the screen again, oozing faux concern. My daughter is a brilliant woman, but this relationship, this association, it calls her judgment into profound question. For the sake of her company, her employees, her shareholders, she must act decisively. She must denounce this dangerous association and ensure Mr. Rhodes faces the full consequences of his actions. The ultimatum hung in the air. The weight of the decision crushed down on Lena. She saw the expectant, panicked faces of her board on the incoming call notifications. She saw Zayden's devastation, the crumbling of his hard-won hope. Lena Carter took a deep, shuddering breath. The polished CEO mask didn't just crack, it fell away completely. What remained was pure, defiant steel. She silenced her phones with a savage swipe. "Vera," she commanded, her voice low and vibrating with intensity. "Call a press conference. Right now. Live. Every major outlet. Get Zayden a suit. The black one." She turned to Zayden, her eyes blazing not with icy control, but with a fire he'd never seen. "We're not running. We're not hiding. And we are not letting him win." The Carter Innovations press room was a maelstrom. Cameras flashed like strobe lights. Reporters shouted over each other. The air crackled with anticipation. Lena Carter walked in, not with her usual measured stride, but with the purposeful gait of a warrior entering the arena. Zayden, beside her, looked shell-shocked but resolute in the dark suit, his jaw clenched. Lena stepped up to the podium, ignoring the shouted questions. She looked directly into the primary camera, her gaze unwavering. "My father, Victor Carter," she began, her voice clear and cutting through the noise, "stands before you today not as a concerned citizen, but as a liar and a manipulator. He has deliberately fabricated evidence to destroy the reputation of Zayden Rhodes and sabotage the legitimate, vital work of the Cypher Foundation." Gasps rippled through the room. "He frames ethical inquiry as terrorism. He brands transparency as a threat. He seeks to crush anything that challenges his monolithic control, including his own daughter's company." Lena's voice rose, fueled by years of suppressed rage and a newfound conviction. His accusations against the Cypher Foundation are baseless slander, designed for one purpose: to punish me for defiance and to eliminate a voice demanding accountability in the tech world. She paused, the silence absolute. Then, she did the unthinkable. She turned from the podium, stepped toward Zayden, and reached out. Not a staged gesture, but a deliberate, grounding movement. Her hand found his fingers, cold and trembling slightly, instinctively closed around hers. The contact was electric, real, and utterly undeniable. Lena turned back to the cameras, holding Zayden's hand firmly in hers, lifting them slightly for all to see. The diamond engagement ring caught the light. "Zayden Rhodes is not a threat," Lena declared, her voice ringing with absolute conviction. "He is a visionary fighting for a better, more responsible future for technology. He challenges us to be better, and he is my partner." She took another breath, looking Victor's projected image square in the eye, wherever he was watching. "My father is the true danger. He is the one who weaponizes lies. He is the one who fears transparency. I stand with my fiancé. Carter Innovation stands with integrity, and we will not be silenced by his fear." She dropped Zayden's hand, but the connection had been made. The line between the fake engagement and something terrifyingly real had vaporized in that single defiant act. Zayden stared at her, not at CEO Lena Carter, but at Lena, the woman who had just publicly chosen him, his ideals, and his fight over her father, her safety, and perhaps her empire. The world erupted in chaos, but for Zayden, in that moment, there was only her. The charade was dead. The war was irrevocably joined. The fallout from Lena's televised defiance was immediate and brutal. Victor Carter's charming mask shattered completely, revealing the ruthless predator beneath. Within hours, Carter Innovation's stock plunged into freefall. Panicked board members, led by a vindictive Charles Henderson, convened an emergency session and voted Lena out as CEO, citing gross misjudgment and endangering shareholder value. Security physically barred her from her own executive suite. Simultaneously, federal agents, acting on Victor's manufactured evidence, raided the barely established Cypher Foundation warehouse, seizing equipment and hauling in Kai and Maya for questioning. The carefully constructed silicon veil lay in tatters. Lena stood in the stark emptiness of her penthouse, the panoramic city view now a mocking reminder of the empire slipping from her grasp. The polished surface reflected a woman stripped of her title, her company, her meticulously crafted armor. Zayden paced like a caged animal, his phone buzzing relentlessly with updates from his scattered, terrified team. "They've got Kai and Maya," he choked out, slamming his fist against the cold glass. "Victor's lawyers are spinning webs faster than I can hack them. My foundation. It's ashes before it even started." He turned on Lena, raw accusation in his eyes, momentarily eclipsing their fragile understanding. "Was it worth it? Your grandstand? Look what it cost." Lena didn't flinch. The vulnerability of the Gala balcony was gone, replaced by a cold, diamond-hard focus. The loss of her position, the public humiliation, the looming ruin, it didn't break her. It forged her. "It cost us the facade, Rhodes," she stated, her voice low and dangerous. "Not the fight. Victor overplayed his hand. He thought exposing you would force me to fold. Instead, he forced my hand against him, publicly and irrevocably. He showed the world exactly who he islanded. Now, we show them the proof." Zayden stopped pacing, staring at her. The icy fury radiating from her wasn't the controlled anger of the CEO. It was primal, focused, terrifying. "Proof? How?" "He's buried the truth under layers of lies and lawyers. The servers holding the original Cypher Collective frame-up are inside CGE's fortress, guarded by layers of security you probably helped design." A ghost of a smile touched Lena's lips. "Exactly. He stole my Aegis blueprints. He's using my architecture to protect his lies. That's his fatal flaw. He thinks he knows me. He thinks he knows my tech. He doesn't know us." The word hung in the air. Us. It wasn't romantic. It was tactical, born of shared desperation and a newly realized symbiosis. Zayden saw it then. Her strategic genius, honed in Victor's own image but now weaponized against him, fused with his own uncanny ability to navigate the digital abyss. Her resources were crippled, but not gone. Her understanding of Victor's mind, of corporate warfare, was intact. His skills, his connection to the digital underground, his burning need to clear his name and protect his people, these were their weapons. "He's vulnerable now," Lena pressed, stepping closer. "He's focused on the kill shot, the board takeover, the smear campaign. He thinks we're finished. He won't expect a counterattack from the shadows. We hit him where he feels safest, his own data vaults." Zayden's mind raced, the hacker assessing the impossible mission. The CGE Citadel, air-gapped backups, quantum encryption rumors, biometrics layered on biometrics. and the mainframe likely protected by a bastardized version of Aegis, thanks to his theft. You know Aegis, Lena stated. It wasn't a question. You bypassed its precursor months ago during that misunderstanding with our beta test data. Your security sucked less back then, Zayden retorted, but the spark was back in his eyes, the challenge, the thrill of the impossible hack, and Victor's ego means he probably tweaked it just enough to think he improved it, creating flaws a purist like me can exploit. Precisely. Lena nodded. We need the originals, the unedited comms proving he ordered the Cypher Collective frame-up, the raw data he manipulated to target your foundation. We get that. Leak it globally at the right moment, and his house of cards collapses. The right moment being? Zayden asked, already mentally mapping attack vectors. When he's gloating, Lena said, her voice glacial. When he thinks he's won. The CGE emergency board meeting is scheduled for tomorrow afternoon to finalize his takeover of Carter Innovations' assets. He'll be there, center stage, ready to claim his prize. That's when we strike. Simultaneously, you get the proof, I deliver the context. The plan was audacious, bordering on suicidal. But cornered, stripped bare, fueled by mutual hatred and a nascent fierce loyalty forged in the crucible of Victor's attacks, it was all they had. The reluctant allies became co-generals in a desperate digital and corporate blitzkrieg. The CGE Citadel wasn't just a building, it was a digital Alcatraz. Nestled deep within CGE's sprawling headquarters complex, its physical security was paramilitary, its digital defenses legendary. Zayden operated from a makeshift command center in a safe house Lena still controlled through blind trusts, a nondescript apartment filled with humming servers, borrowed from Vera's most trusted and discreet contacts. Surrounded by his scattered collective members dialing in remotely, Kai freed on bail but under watch, Maya coordinating from a burner phone, others providing crucial intel from the digital shadows, Zayden felt the familiar electric buzz of a high-stakes op. This wasn't chaos for chaos's sake, this was precision surgery. He's definitely using a modified Aegis kernel, Zayden muttered, his fingers a blur across multiple keyboards, streams of code reflecting in his glasses. Lena was right. Victor couldn't resist tinkering. He added extra biometric handshake protocols. Idiot. Creates a timing lag in the secondary validation sequence. He grinned. A feral thing. That's our back door. The plan was multi-layered, a symphony of deception and infiltration. 1. Distraction. Maya initiated a coordinated, noisy, but harmless, DDoS attack on CGE's public-facing servers, drawing the attention of their security teams and creating digital smoke. 2. Social engineering. Kai, using voice mimicry software and data gleaned from Lena on key CGE security personnel, called the Citadel's external monitoring desk, reporting a critical environmental fluctuation in a sub-basement, triggering an automated systems check that momentarily rerouted internal security logs. 3. Physical insertion. Vera, moving with lethal grace, infiltrated the headquarters complex disguised as maintenance staff. Her target, a seemingly insignificant junction box near the Citadel's service entrance. Inside, she planted a tiny, custom-built device Zayden had cobbled together, a passive signal repeater piggybacking on the building's internal fiber network. 4. The digital ghost. With the distraction active, the logs blinded, and the repeater in place, Zayden struck. Using a zero-day exploit he'd been saving for a true emergency and leveraging the timing lag in Victor's modified Aegis protocols, he slipped through the outermost firewall like smoke. He wasn't brute forcing, he was ghosting, mimicking authorized system pings, riding the coattails of legitimate maintenance traffic rerouted by Kai's call. Inside the digital fortress, alarms remained silent. Zayden navigated labyrinthine virtual corridors, bypassing tripwires designed by minds he respected and had often outwitted. He felt Victor's presence in the architecture, the paranoia, the arrogance, the belief in his own invincibility. It fueled Zayden's focus. He found the archive server labeled Project Silencer, Victor's cynical codename for the Cypher Collective takedown. Encryption melted under his bespoke decryption keys, built on Lena's intimate knowledge of Aegis's original core weaknesses. Files flooded his secure buffer, emails with clear directives from Victor to his Black Ops chief, audio recordings of planning sessions. The original data packet planted to frame the collective, pristine and unaltered. He then pivoted, slicing into the more recent Project Hero files, the manufactured evidence against the Cypher Foundation. Again, the raw, unedited data lay bare Victor's manipulations. Sweat beaded on Zayden's forehead. Time was a razor's edge. Security protocols were reinitializing, the digital smoke was clearing. With a final, decisive command, he wrapped the damning evidence in multiple layers of untraceable encryption and set it on a countdown timer, primed to burst onto the global net. He then planted a subtle, non-destructive worm, a final insult, designed to scramble Victor's internal comms for the next crucial hour. As digital sentinels finally stirred, sensing the phantom intrusion, Zayden vanished, leaving no trace but the ticking bomb of truth he'd embedded deep within Victor's sanctum. Package secured. Zayden breathed into his calm, the tension in the safe house momentarily lifting. Primed for delivery. Your turn, Carter. Don't miss your cue. While Zayden danced through the digital darkness, Lena fought on a different battlefield. Ostracized, publicly vilified, she was far from powerless. Her years of building strategic alliances, her meticulous record-keeping, and her sheer, unbreakable will became her arsenal. Leveraging every ounce of remaining influence and calling in favors held in absolute confidence, she orchestrated a parallel emergency meeting, not of the compromised Carter Innovations Board, but of its major institutional shareholders, the pension funds, the sovereign wealth entities whose billions truly underpinned the company. She met them in a discreet, high-security conference room miles from CGE's influence. Gone was the Ice Queen. In her place stood Lena Carter, the founder, the architect of Aegis, her passion blazing brighter than any corporate polish. She faced skeptical, powerful faces. You voted me out based on my father's lies and a board's panic, she stated, her voice resonant with conviction. Victor Carter doesn't want Carter Innovations for its value. He wants it to cannibalize Aegis, to crush innovation that challenges his outdated empire, and to finally extinguish the daughter who dared to defy him. He weaponized my engagement, not because it was real, but because it symbolized an alliance he couldn't control, an alliance between cutting-edge security and ethical technological accountability. She projected schematics onto the screen, not financials but blueprints for Project Greenlight, her secret sustainable tech initiative. Wind turbine designs integrated with AI optimization grids, biodegradable sensor networks for precision agriculture. This, she declared, is the true future of Carter Innovations. Not just profit, but progress with purpose. This is what Victor wants to bury. This is the innovation he fears. She then displayed Victor's own history. CGE's documented data privacy violations, environmental fines buried in subsidiaries, the aggressive innovation-stifling acquisitions. He offers stability built on rot. He offers control fueled by fear and deception. Is that the legacy you want your investments tied to? Her performance was masterful, weaving together the personal betrayal, the ethical imperative, and the compelling vision of a profitable, responsible future. She appealed not just to wallets but to conscience and foresight. She saw doubt shifting, calculations being reevaluated. The seed was planted. As the meeting concluded, Lena received Zayden's coded signal, package secured, primed. A fierce surge of adrenaline shot through her. The timing was perfect. Gentlemen, she announced, a new steel in her voice. The narrative is about to change, dramatically. I suggest you tune into the CGE board meeting. The truth, as they say, is imminent. The CGE boardroom was a study in triumphant anticipation. Victor Carter sat at the head of the imposing table, basking in the deference of the assembled directors. On a large screen, a live feed showed Charles Henderson preparing to formally hand over Carter Innovations' core assets to CGE control. Victor's expression was one of serene victory. The troublesome daughter was ousted, the meddling hacker was disgraced and soon to be imprisoned. His dominion was absolute. Today marks a consolidation, Victor began, his voice smooth and magnanimous. A strengthening of the Carter legacy under unified, experienced leadership. We move forward, eliminating distractions and focusing on proven. His words faltered. The large screen behind him, meant to display the Carter Innovations transfer documents, flickered violently. The CGE logo dissolved. In its place, raw, damning data flooded the display. Email. Victor Carter to Black Ops Chief. Frame the collective, use the Hydra protocol. Make it messy enough to scare Lena. Audio snippet. Victor's voice. Zayden Rhodes is an idealistic fool. Crush his little club. Send a message. Side-by-side data. Original Cypher Collective data versus Victor's manipulated version. The fabrication glaringly obvious. Project Hero files. Clear timestamps showing Victor's team doctoring evidence against the Cypher Foundation, splicing audio, forging documents. Simultaneously, every device in the room, tablets, phones, laptops, lit up with the same torrent of evidence. Across the globe, major news networks, financial data streams, and public bulletin boards were hijacked, broadcasting Victor Carter's crimes in real time. Zayden's digital bomb had detonated perfectly. Chaos erupted. Board members stared in horrified disbelief. Henderson, on the live feed from Carter Innovations, gaped like a fish. Victor Carter's face drained of color, then contorted with apoplectic rage. Shut it down! Security, it's a hack! Lies! He bellowed, slamming his fist on the table, his carefully constructed persona obliterated. But it was too late. The evidence was irrefutable, sourced from the heart of his own Citadel. The livestream captured every micro-expression of his guilt and fury, beaming it to millions. Regulatory bodies issued immediate statements launching investigations. CGE's stock price imploded. Shareholders, many fresh from Lena's impassioned meeting, began frantic calls demanding Victor's immediate resignation. Amidst the pandemonium, Victor's eyes locked onto a secondary monitor showing Lena Carter, standing calmly amidst her group of major shareholders, a faint, unreadable smile on her lips. Not triumph, but grim vindication. Their gazes met across the digital divide. Victor's rage subsided, replaced by something colder, more terrifying, utter, profound disappointment. He saw not a defeated daughter, but a Victor who had won using weapons he despised. As security finally killed the feeds and his own board members turned on him, voices demanding his resignation rising in a cacophony, Victor Carter pushed back his chair. He walked towards Lena's image on the screen, his steps measured, his voice cutting through the noise, cold and clear, meant only for her, though the microphones picked it up. "You chose sentiment," he spat, the words dripping with contempt, his ultimate condemnation. "Over power, over legacy, over winning." He shook his head, a chilling dismissal. "Weakness, just like your mother." With that, he turned and walked out of the boardroom, leaving his crumbling empire behind, his reputation in tatters, his greatest fear realized. Lena had defied him, beaten him, and become something he could never understand. The aftershocks were seismic, but the dust eventually settled. Victor Carter, facing multiple federal investigations and shareholder lawsuits, was forced to resign from CGE in disgrace. His legacy was one of corruption and betrayal, not conquest. Carter Innovations, its value plummeting but its core technology and ethical future vision now clear, underwent a massive restructuring. The shareholders, heeding Lena's call and horrified by Victor's actions, voted overwhelmingly to reinstate Lena as CEO. Charles Henderson and the panicked board members were unceremoniously ousted. Lena's first act was public and unequivocal. Standing beside Zayden Rhodes at a press conference, she announced Carter Innovations' full, legitimate backing of the Cypher Foundation. "This isn't charity," she stated. "It's investment. Investment in a future where technological innovation walks hand in hand with ethical responsibility, transparency, and the protection of digital rights." The Cypher Foundation, under Zayden Rhodes' leadership, will be an independent watchdog and innovator, funded by Carter Innovations but accountable only to its mission. Kai, Maya, and the rest of the collective, cleared of all charges and vindicated, stood proudly behind them. Zayden's found family was reunited, stronger and operating in the light. Weeks later, the city buzzed with a different energy. Carter Innovations, under Lena's renewed leadership, embraced Project Greenlight publicly, attracting a new wave of ethically minded investors. The Cypher Foundation, housed in a new, secure facility bearing a Defiant Circuit logo banner, was already making waves, exposing corruption and developing privacy-first tools. Lena and Zayden found themselves on the penthouse balcony once more, not as reluctant allies bound by a lie, but as partners who had walked through fire. The engagement ring still caught the light, but its meaning had shifted. The city lights sprawled before them, no longer just a prize to be won, but a landscape they were striving to change. A reporter, granted a rare joint interview, couldn't resist the inevitable question. "Miss Carter, Mr. Rhodes, the world watched your incredible journey. Any wedding bells finally ringing true, or is the renegotiation still ongoing?" Lena and Zayden shared a look. It held the echoes of their explosive first meeting, the friction of Gala's, the shared vulnerability in the dark, the electric touch during her defiance, the fierce trust forged in the digital heist. It was complex, charged, and undeniably real. Respect, friction, a deep-seated loyalty, and a spark that had ignited amidst the lies and the battle. Zayden smirked, the familiar defiance softened by something new, a sense of belonging perhaps, or simple, hard-won peace. He glanced at Lena, a question in his eyes she could read perfectly. She gave an almost imperceptible nod. He turned back to the reporter, his grin widening. "Ask me again in 6 months." Lena raised a single, perfectly sculpted eyebrow, a genuine, unguarded smile, the first truly free one she'd ever worn in public, touching her lips. "We're renegotiating the terms," she confirmed, her voice laced with a promise of battles yet to come, and perhaps something more. "Thoroughly." As the reporter left, they stood side by side on the penthouse balcony, the city's electric pulse mirroring the current humming between them. The engagement ring still glinted on Lena's finger, no longer armor, but a testament to battles fought and truths uncovered. Zayden turned first, his gaze tracing the unguarded curve of her smile, a sight rarer than any corporate victory. "Still hate my corporate jet?" Lena murmured, the old edge softened by warmth. Only slightly less than your tasting coffee, he countered, stepping closer. The space between them crackled with the weight of every Gala argument, every midnight vulnerability, every heartbeat when her hand found his before the cameras. When his lips brushed hers, tentative, questioning, it wasn't a fairy tale ending, it was a beginning, a collision of chaos and control, ethics and ambition, the last fragments of their charade dissolving into something terrifyingly real. Lena's fingers curled into his hoodie, anchoring herself as Zayden's hand cradled her jaw with a gentleness that belied his hacker's calluses. They parted breathlessly, foreheads resting together. No declarations, no promises, just the silent understanding of partners rewriting their own rules. Below them, the city glittered with challenges yet unconquered. But for now, in the quiet aftermath of war, they'd finally stopped pretending. Enjoyed the story? Like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss the next one.